Uh-oh, looks like everybody's ready to start. The governor's on his way, and we wanted to make that the first piece, but we'll go through a couple of things before we get there. So I'll ask Executive Director Radu to call the roll.
Regent Bailing.
Present.
Regent Bradley.
Present.
Regent Drew.
Here.
Regent Evers.
Here.
Regent Falbo. Regent Farrell. Regent Higgins.
Here.
Regent Rybar. Here. Regent Landis.
Here.
Regent Manydeed.
Here.
Regent Milner. Regent Mueller. Here. Regent Peterson.
Here.
Regent Pruitt.
Here.
Regent Roberts.
Here.
Regent Vasquez.
Here.
Regent Walsh.
Here.
Regent Whitburn.
Here.
The quorum is present.
That's nice. Now relax. I broke into a sweat when she looked at me. It reminded me of my first grade nun when I did something wrong. Good afternoon. Before we get started, and we know the governor's on his way, so we'll break for him as soon as he gets here. And then when he's done, we'll have lunch. We thought it was a better idea to have lunch after the governor's visit for the Doyle appointees. Not to have any food on the table. I'm kidding. But I want to extend a warm welcome to UW-Whitewater Chancellor Dick Telford. Where's Dick? There he is. Who's graciously agreed to serve as interim president of the UW system after President Riley steps down at the end of this month. I shouldn't say graciously is probably overstating it. But he has agreed. We will be formalizing a few details regarding this transition during our closed session later this afternoon. But let me just say that I'm looking forward to working with interim President Telfer in the coming months. He understands the UW system, the complex issues we are facing. We're fortunate to have someone with his considerable experience and leadership skill to man the helm, providing an important sense of stability during this transition period. Staying with Whitewater for a moment, we'd also like to acknowledge Provost and Vice Chancellor Beverly Copper, who will be serving as interim chancellor at UW-Whitewater during Dick's time up here. Bev, we look forward to working with you in the coming months as well. Where's I don't think there was any message there that Bev got a round of applause. You think you had to. Here we go. So, good morning. How are you? And then one more quick note before we proceed. I would like to... Did you want to sit by me? You're the governor. You sit where you like. We'd like to remind everyone that there's a special farewell reception for President Riley later today at the Wisconsin Institute for Discovery. I understand there will be some special guests in attendance and live entertainment. And I don't think that live entertainment is the special guests, but we'll see. Yeah, we look forward to seeing everybody there. At this time, it's an honor, and it's always an honor for many, many years to introduce our special guests he needs no introduction, I'm sure, to anybody in this room. So on behalf of the Board of Regents, let me please join me in welcoming Governor Scott Walker. Some of you may recall that Governor Walker last visited the board several years ago, just 2 or 3 days after the election.
Sorry.
He spoke then about UW's important role in economic development both here in Wisconsin and beyond. And since then, we have engaged in many collaborative efforts in that area. So without further ado, Governor, it's all yours.
Thanks, Mike. It's good to be with you. And thanks to all the regents, to all the chancellors, to everybody else here, who's staff, supporters, students, everyone else who's representative of the wonderful University of Wisconsin system. It's an honor to be with you here today. First off, I want to say congratulations to Kevin. We mentioned it at his announcement, and he caught me before making that announcement officially, but we wanted to add, again here publicly in front of the Regents, my thanks, Kevin, for your leadership, in particular the last few years as we've worked together, and we're going to touch on this a little bit in particular in a moment in our comments, but on not only furthering the growth of this great system, the University of Wisconsin system, but in particular on a number of economic development initiatives, as well as one in particular I mentioned, in fact, as some of you might recall, last year invited both the President and Chancellor Cross to join in the chambers of the State Assembly as we highlighted the University of Wisconsin Flex Option, which obviously we're very excited about and appreciate your leadership. It's been fun to watch in the last year all the national attention that this Flex Options received, being the first public institution to pursue such a bold and relevant idea for learners, particularly many of our adult learners here in the state of Wisconsin. Appreciate your leadership on that and so many other issues. And I just wanted to say personally in front of this board and in front of all the others here, on behalf of the state of Wisconsin, we thank you for your service.
That's very nice.
Thank you. I also want to say, in terms of congratulations, congratulations to Chancellor Sorensen on the announcement of his retirement. I was just up on campus a few weeks ago at a manufacturing event, showing yet another reason why, as I've been at many of your campuses talking about economic development issues and talking about the relevance there. At that particular event, we had a good group. It was another day weather-wise, kind of like it is today, but I know that he's obviously had a long tenure at Stout, and one of the longest tenures, as I understand, in the history of the UW system, and certainly appreciate his leadership there. And know, just as we've had transitions with chancellors the last couple of years, we will fill that position and have another great chancellor at UW Stout, but really appreciate his leadership there. I wanted to comment for just a few moments and then let you get back to business. I'm going to be headed off to Green Bay and making a stop along the way. But really, to echo, Mike, what you mentioned in the original comments about when I first came here after the election, and I've talked obviously to many of you, not only as appointees but members of the Board of Regents and to many of the chancellors here about this. We feel very strongly, felt very strongly at that time, I feel even more so today, of the importance of the partnership, not only with the state, but with our partners at the regional level, with our institutions of higher learning, in particular our distinguished University of Wisconsin campuses across the state of Wisconsin, that for economic development to continue to move forward in this state, we've got to show that strong link. And I think we've shown that we've done it time and time again. I know, thinking of many of the chancellors here, I've seen at many different events. I'm going to be at the New North tomorrow, and a number of our campuses in that area are included in that, whether it's the New North, the M7, Momentum West, on down the line, Synergy, you name it, at economic development region after region. Our University of Wisconsin campuses are some of the leading catalysts for economic growth and prosperity within the region and in turn within the state. And so I'm excited, first off, to acknowledge that, because this isn't a call to arms. This is a call to continue to build off of that strong partnership and that leadership that we see not only from the Regents here, but we see on our individual campuses all across the state. So again, a big thanks to our chancellors and to their teams at each of our individual campuses here. We tried to include a number of things, and many successfully got through the budget process. That would do that. We're certainly excited about the economic development incentive grants, and we've seen a number of our campuses take advantage of those, and we think that will be just the beginning of even more exciting and dynamic things to come in the future. We also know that beyond just specifically working on what we would call economic development projects or partnerships, that obviously a big part of it, and I hear it from employers, and many of the Regents here are employers yourself, know that one of the big issues we hear about time and time again is not just whether or not we can create more jobs in the state, but whether we can fill them. Just at an event yesterday in Milwaukee County where yet another employer said to me, you know, I'd add more work, but I'm at a point now where I can't fill all the positions I currently have, and so if you could help me with that, not only would I fill those positions, I'd add more. I could put more people to work. I could take on more business, more opportunities out there. And it's obviously not just limited to the programs provided through the University of Wisconsin system. It's as well the partnership we have with our technical college system and our individual campuses there, and programs like Wisconsin Fast Forward and others across the state. But in particular, that's why I like the flex option so much. When we think about 20 to 25% of the adult population of the state having some degree of college credit without a degree, and the opportunity in areas like engineering, information technology, certainly in healthcare, as we see growing needs to fill those positions. What I love so much, and I appreciate, Kevin, your leadership along with Ray and the system on the flex option, was to say this isn't just about being innovative, which it is. This is about being relevant. And we know in today's society we have jobs open in those key areas as well as many others, but this is one of those areas where the University of Wisconsin is stepping up and being even more relevant than ever. In this case, particularly for adults and non-traditional learners, to say we're going to help you get the degree you need to fill these positions. We're not going to do it in a way that maybe some others have talked about, where we just give you credit for life experience for the sake of it. We want a University of Wisconsin degree to mean something. And so it's a competency-based program, because every program we offer that leads to a degree should mean something. No matter what campus we get it at, it should be a University of Wisconsin degree that means something special to our employers and to ultimately to our students. And that's really exciting. And so taking that sort of giant step forward, I think with the flex option, is one of the many things that will help us going forward. That's why we're going to continue to invest in programs like that in future budgets. We're going to continue to work not only with the Regents, but work on the campuses to take that the next step and add even more programs along the way, because we've highlighted some of the key areas. But I think as more people learn about that and see the success of this initial phase, they're going to want to try it out in other areas, and I think that's going to be exciting for the future. We're also going to help, as we talk about workforce development, worker training. It's not just in the 2- or the 4-year degree programs. It's certainly why we invested more resources, for example, for the University of Wisconsin School of Medicine and Public Health, to help with training of physicians, particularly primary care physicians, in rural and in urban areas with high poverty, the WARM and the Triumph programs. And I know, again, there was a little bit of a dance with the legislature and some of those things, but in the future we're going to continue to make those commitments, because we know, I was just talking with some dairy farmers, for example, the other day, and they're not just interested in dairy policy, they want to know quality of life in rural areas, and so the WARM program plays a big part of that, making sure we have enough well-trained primary care physicians and others in key areas. So we're going to make those continue to make those sorts of investments in the future, whether it's in rural or, again, in some of our key areas of need in urban areas across the state of Wisconsin. We're excited about the opportunity to continue down that and go forward. And so I wanted to be here to reaffirm the good work that's been done thus far, but also maybe to spark a little bit of enthusiasm for what more we can do in the future, knowing that, for me, one of the key phrases, and you heard me say it before in the flex option, but is for us to continue to find ways to be relevant. Continue to find ways to be relevant. And that means not only for adult or non-traditional learners, certainly for our traditional students. I'm vested in that. I have a son who's going to school. He better be going to school right now. I don't know what class schedule is right now as we speak, but just down the way here on the Madison campus. In fact, I was a little perplexed about Saturday's game, so you'll get a kick out of this. I had a T-shirt made that says it's PC. It's not politically correct. It's parentally correct. It's a basketball jersey. One half is red, and it says one son at UW. The other son is yellow, and it says one son at MU. And so I'm not politically correct, I'm parentally correct, because as Margaret knows, I went to Marquette. I love UW. I cheer for them every other game. But this is the first time when I'm not wearing my gold to a Marquette, Wisconsin game, only because I don't care about the politically correct. It's when you have a son at each that you need to be parentally correct to deal with both. Yeah, exactly right. Yeah. But from my standpoint now, not just as governor, but as the parent of a son who's at the University of Wisconsin, and who actually not only here at Madison, but I didn't mention this, Chancellor Lovell before, is even looking at taking his engineering background and maybe getting a master's in architecture at your fine campus in Milwaukee as well. I see, like a lot of other parents across the state, obviously excited about the opportunities offered to our sons and daughters, our grandsons and our granddaughters at our campuses. And I think one of the exciting things, the opportunity we have in the future, is whether it's for young people like them or others looking to come back and finish off a degree or get another degree or look at other ways of furthering their education. We have a unique opportunity at this time in our state and in our nation's history to be at a point where we can be leading the way, not just in higher education, but leading the way and providing the way that is relevant to where each of our current and potential students are as we look ahead on the horizon. And again, that's why for me the flex option was so exciting, but there are many, many other ways we can go down that path. And so I'm going to come by today, and if you like, Mike, I can take a couple questions before we depart.
Yeah, that would be great. I'd like to, and I hope I'm not putting you on the spot, Tim, but because you brought up the collaboration and the awards,
Yeah.
the meeting was this morning, and the one thing I was impressed with in sitting in the back and listening was the collaborations, and maybe you want to speak a little bit about those awards.
Great. Well, you mentioned the Economic Development Incentive Grants, and I'm very pleased that the process that we, thank you very much, Jose, the process that we went through was completed in a way that everybody felt was both transparent and fair, and that's cool. But we're also extremely proud of the quality of the grants that we funded, as well as the quality of some of the grants we were not able to fund. And mostly because we saw the programs leveraging not only cooperation and collaboration among campuses, for instance, a nursing program that involves 4 different campuses, plus a chemistry excellence program that will not only leverage cooperation between campuses, but also with private businesses in the southeast Wisconsin area. So it's this kind of effort that puts us in the dare to be relevant area, and we thank you and the legislature for putting that program in the budget. Now we're just going to hope that the next time we can prove that we're doing such a good job that in the next biennium we can ask for new money to do it. So again, thanks for the opportunity.
Well, and Tim, thank you for leadership on that. I think part of it you mentioned about the grants and the institutions, the campuses involved, but you hit on a key word, transparency. I think not only on this issue, but overall, which I know has been a focal point for the Regents, particularly since the budget process, is the greater the transparency, the greater the result's going to be, I think, not only with me in the next budget, but with the legislature. That I think when people see where resources are going, that it's not just a blank check, that here's what it's for and here's what the results are, and that makes a huge difference. Collaboration as well, I should add, and I can give an example for every one of the campuses here. When I mentioned the regional economic development efforts, which for us, with WDC, we've really tried to make that a focal point, to not have the state here and the regions and then cities and counties, but that if an employer wants to grow or one wants to come into a given community, that we have a way where they contact one entity. That entity should then spread out and reach with all of us so that they don't have to go through multiple layers of bureaucracy and so forth. And I think in the successful regions we've been at, we've seen that our UW campuses are not only with the driving force in much of that success, but they're also very much in that collaborative spirit, not only amongst other UW campuses that might be in a given region, but with other institutions of higher learning, whether it's a technical college or a private college, understanding that as a region, we've got to do well, and the more successful options we offer to employers and ultimately to students, the better off we're going to be.
Any questions? Chancellors, any comments? No.
You know, now, you say the chancellors, you say the questions, lobbying me on anything.
There's a chance. There's an opportunity.
Well, the one other thing I will say, because the chancellors appreciate it, because I've talked to almost every one of them to a person on their campus. One of the other things that I mentioned transparency, to be very transparent. You know, obviously we put additional resources for flexibility in the budget, and because of some things that occurred at the time, the legislature pulled back on that. I think the more clearly transparent this Board of Regents is as a system as a whole, the greater impetus, because I'm committed to going down that same path again, because I think one of the great benefits is to give the chancellors who I've had the pleasure of visiting on campuses, you know, greater flexibility, greater opportunity to do great things at each of their individual campuses. I think that's a good thing. And I think most lawmakers in both parties believe that. There's some exceptions out there, but most believe that to be true. It's just in terms of the circumstances at the time, we're a little bit reluctant. And so I think this gives us an even greater opportunity to be even more transparent, even more clear, even more accountable. And then I think as we come back in the next budget process, there's a real opportunity to put even more power and not just autonomy, but more flexibility to do some of the great things we're talking about at individual campus levels, which not only is music to the ears of the chancellors, I think it's a good thing for our institutions and a good thing for our system, and most importantly for our state.
Kevin, you're going to comment?
I was just going to ask. Terrace, when you and Tonette are looking across the water from the government.
Well, I told him on Thanksgiving, whether he believes this to be true or not, that I can see Smith Hall from my house. I can't, but I like to pretend. So I look to particularly remind him that his girlfriend, who also goes to UW Madison, I can see where her hall is, and at a certain time of night, I want to make sure her light is on in her dorm and his is in his dorm. But that's a whole other matter. But
yes, Margaret.
I guess, excuse me, being one of the new kids here in the group, I guess my voice doesn't want me to talk. I'm with all my colleagues here. What I would say, and what I've been experiencing, is the struggle for that transparency. You brought it up. Not that they're trying to hide anything, but how do you define transparency to satisfy the legislature at this point is the one I'm focusing on. And I think you could help us, because I think I have seen through the various committees and all, there's a real effort to find a way to define what's going on here in the way they could understand. 133 of them, 32. Yeah, okay. It's been a while. But anyway, what I'm suggesting is when we are finished with meeting all their deadlines, it might be helpful if you convene something with, and I didn't even run this by you, Mr. President, I'm sorry. But my point is, when I came in, everybody said, tell us what the legislature needs. They have to hear good summary statements that they understand so that they become a partner, as you in this body is. So I guess that would be something I would think that, you might want to do with.
It's a great idea. Yeah, absolutely.
No, I think that's a wonderful idea. And I think you saw some of the growing pains of the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation as it transitioned from the Department of Commerce into a separate corporation, much as other states had done. The corporation as well went through a number of things, and then but part of one of the big benefits was at the end of having an exhaustive, very public discussion about what we had done and how we'd done it and what the changes meant. I think was particularly helpful, because you need some point where you can say, okay, now we can move on to the next thing. I think that would be important.
Governor, thank you very much.
Thank you all. Have a, I was going to say, I think Hanukkah actually ended last night, so I can't say, for those who celebrate, hope you had a good festival of lights, and hope everybody had a wonderful Thanksgiving, and for those getting ready for Christmas who celebrate that, a very Merry Christmas to you and your family as well. Thank you.
What do you do for the basketball game tomorrow?
What I do in terms of, well, I don't ever miss the games, but like I said, I'll wear the shirt with the split on there, not because I'm politically correct, but parentally correct. Actually, it'll be a lot of fun. I think it's actually kind of nice to have a number of good teams. And although I'd be even happier if we get back to not only having Wisconsin and Marquette, but I'd love to have both Green Bay and Milwaukee, who are Division I teams, back in the tournament as well. That may be a few years off, but there's always hope. That way I have plenty of teams to bet on with other governors.
See what we can do to help that. Thank you. we're supposed to have a lunch break now, and we will. My question is, as long as we've just convened, would you like to just take 10 minutes and bring your lunch back and have a working lunch, and we can continue to move on? Okay, let's do that. So we'll come back at 1 o'clock, a little more than 10 minutes. Thank you.
Okay.